for tuning in to the first annual Nguzo Saba Black History Month Festival. This festival is hosted by Giame Journey Media, Black Liberation Movement, and the Unbossed Network. Each day this week, we are going to focus on the Kwanzaa Principles and how we can apply those to our everyday lives to enrich ourselves and to build Black power and to enhance the modern Black history that we are currently building right now. So, with today being Monday, the principle of the day is Umoja. Umoja means to strive and maintain unity in the family, community, and race. We can practice Umoja by building bridges, building connections with each other, working with people who we normally wouldn't work with, solving differences with others, building community and family outside of our natural community and family. Umoja is extremely important so that we can all bind together and build our own, and to do better for not just ourselves, but for each other. So my challenge for you today is for you to find different ways to incorporate Umoja into your daily routine. So thank you so much for tuning in. This is Kiara Yakita of the Black Liberation Movement and the Unbossed Network. And we are so excited for this first annual Nguzo Saba Black History Festival. Stay tuned. We have a wonderful lineup for you guys. And as always, much love and solidarity.
And I'm going to welcome you to this year's Nguzo Saba Festival. I just showed you the ingredients and I poured in the marinade. Now I'm going to let it marinate for 15 minutes. So I'm going to show you the ingredients again. I have liquid amino soy sauce, crushed red pepper, garlic minced, and ground ginger, red wine vinegar, and some brown sugar. And that's all in this tofu. And it's going to marinate for 15 minutes. This year's principle is Umoja. And it stands for unity.
Hi, family. Happy Black History Month. This is Tiandra. I am the founding servant leader of Spirit Over Flesh. Back in 2018, I organically started a project where I had the opportunity to just highlight up-and-coming trailblazers of today as they identified their greatest historical and/or ancestral influence in Black history. That month of celebrating my peers and mentors and people that I just admire and adore actually became a book. And so last year, Juneteenth of 2020, I was sitting on this project that was basically already done, but being the strategic free spirit that you all know I am, I decided, what do I have to lose? It's those life and death situations, or when the social aptitude of America where we reside was getting to be a bit tense. I just decided to go for it. Why not? I can either release it now or release it posthumously, and I'd rather not, even though I'm sure that's a beautiful thing as well. So with that said, on Juneteenth of 2020, I decided on July 4th of 2020, we were going to reclaim that day. I was going to celebrate and come alongside sister and mother Assata Shakur, who penned a letter from prison in July 4th of 1978, and just reclaim July 4th. So on that day, we released a early edition, limited 50 copies of this manuscript. And so today I actually get the opportunity to highlight again and celebrate the first individual that was featured in this text. Before we even get started, I actually want to bring him on and introduce him to you all. So, hey, Brandon. So for all of you, if you don't already know, this is Brandon Oshodin. He is the founder of Authentic Fitness. He is a beautiful human being. Beautiful father and husband and mentor of mine, brother of mine, spiritual leader, really. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to bring you on. And I'm grateful that you allowed me to celebrate you in that way a couple years ago and that you're here with me today. So thanks for being here.
I'm completely humbled and forever grateful. Thank you so much for your presence, for your book. I'm excited about everything that you have going on right now and everything that is to come for sure. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So I know that you haven't seen or held one of these copies. And
Not
so
yet.
Today, I'm actually going to read some of it to you and then ask you some questions to go alongside with it, if that's okay.
Absolutely. I'm excited to hear.
Awesome. The avid reader that you are, but we'll get into that. So as always, definitely give me feedback too. This is to flow. So this isn't fancy. This is just us being our authentic selves with a K, y'all. So let's just have a conversation and really get in and be as mindful as we always are typically when we get together and get to nerd out a little bit.
Let's do it.
Cool. So again, give flowers when they're due, an ode to Black history. The artwork was done by Kendishi, who is an artist local to Columbus. And then the design and graphic design was done by a cousin of mine, Julian Watson, who is finishing his senior year of high school. So thank you and shout out to them. But I'm going to go ahead and read the back cover for you to give you an overview.
Okay.
Give Flowers When They're Due is a narrative created to pay homage to our historical figures through the celebration of up-and-coming trailblazers. This is a charge to no longer hold your appreciation for others and edification for self for a rainy day. What use are the days of hoarding our love and gratitude like manna? Distribute flowers now, my guy. No need for an extravagant bouquet. Your words of affirmation and appreciation will surely be enough to resemble the ever-cherished just because wildflower picked up by the road, rather than the it's a Hallmark holiday, so let me grab this corner store bouquet right quick to go through the motions. We need this as a community if we are going to progress at the rate necessary to not only bless our livelihood, but for those of our children and the generations to come. Let's do Nina, Maya, Malcolm, and Martin justice, not by continually celebrating them every year like clockwork, but by adding to their number, by supporting one another, commemorating life in real time, not waiting to ignite a benefit following their untimely death. This is my contribution to give flowers when they're due. May the aroma fill the air and overflow your soul as you continue to press on in your purpose, embraced every step of the way.
That was beautiful. You paint a picture. Because I read it, I could literally see the picking up of the flower and how that would mean more than just like, going to this, store real quick just because, it's time to get the flowers. And that's really, you're a good writer.
And you know what? Something that I've appreciated about you and your family and my friend Liv is that I really feel as though you are an example of living in the moment and celebrating one another and all around you just naturally and organically and not waiting for Valentine's Day or Black History Month to be Black or, you know what I mean? Or birthdays. Like, yes, you acknowledge them, but it's not something that you wait for. So that's to be admired.
Thank you. Just grateful for the day. Grateful for what's right now,
For sure. So your chapter in particular starts on page 47 because as we all know, I happen to be long-winded sometimes and I'm very intentional about the words that I use. And so you actually are the first individual that's featured in this manuscript.
That's incredible. It's like I said, it's an honor. I don't take it lightly at all. Trust me. I don't.
I know. I always appreciate how I don't even know what's the word that you taught me. It wasn't humble. It was meek. I always appreciate how meek you are in your presence, and I hope that I can be the same.
Gratitude.
So, do you remember who you articulated as your greatest historical or ancestral influence in 2018, I believe it was?
It had to be 2017. I know it was Jay-Z.
And I think this was 2018, and it was definitely Jay-Z.
Okay. Then yeah.
So
yeah,
I wrote you a letter to start the chapter. So I'm going to go ahead and read it.
Okay.
It says, Brandon, thank you for your understanding of interconnectedness. From the roots of the trees to the birds in the sea to every soul you encounter, you honor each with great worth. I've personally grown so much within your care, as I know many others have. By being authentically you, your presence alone welcomes the same from all within your reach. Thank you for denouncing any limiting belief on behalf of yourself, your family, and beyond. Your clear vision and constant pursuit to fulfill just that has blessed me and will continue to bless many others.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's really who you are. You don't meet many Brandons often, and so I know that we have the opportunity to share this with the masses, and I hope everybody sees it because I think that, again, how you and your family live so authentically, sometimes I think it can seem out of reach, but I know that in meeting you in the authentic space that I was, that I've been able to come more into that, and I believe I've been able to do so, being able to walk alongside you and being molded and shaped and fed in to by you and your team.
Honestly, I don't even know what to say. Like, all this is just it's beautiful. It's a blessing, and it's amazing because it's like I've just been working on me. So I'm glad to see that. It's amazing to see, like like you're saying, the impact that it's had on you. It's beautiful. It reminds me, like, to change the world, all you need to do is change yourself, because I don't really do anything intentionally to try to, go out my way. Honestly, a lot of times I probably don't say, I'm like, if I say this, it's going to sound weird. Like, nobody's going to really understand what I'm saying, I think we talked about that a couple of days ago. And so I'm just, going through my own experiences, always have my own challenges, and speaking a way that I can, tap into that heaven within. So if it has had any benefit on anybody, especially you, I'm grateful, because I know it's not me at all. It's just, something being expressed through me, and more, if anything, a reflection of yourself. So thank you, because you're reflecting it back to me. So it's beautiful.
Thank you. I do want to say, like, the way that Brandon and I met was kind of like a long time coming, a little bit, because of the gift of social media. And so I feel like I knew of you through other people that had worked out with you, because that is a part of what you do, but it is not all of what you do at all.
Right.
And I know that we had like family, and I think we were maybe at a wedding around the same time together, or in a wedding at the same time. But when I moved back to Ohio, I really needed like a sense of self and home, because I was embarking on my journey into becoming a Western society doctor of osteopathic medicine. And it really was, it was a challenge for me, which I love challenges. But when I was looking to work out, I think I said it to you, and you created the space where I could be true to myself and articulate, like, hey, I don't come here for a Kim K booty. Okay? Like, that's not going to motivate me. That's not what I'm about. Like, I'm here about my spiritual self, and I can put in the work spiritually and show up for myself spiritually like this, and challenge myself so that way God can show up and show out. That's why I'm here. And you were like, and it was like, it was almost like that Spider-Man meme, where it's like,
no, for real. For real. When you started to bring up that story, I literally remember, and I went home and told Liv. I was so happy. I was like, yo, finally somebody gets it, because I mean, I was doing the thing because, you know, it's hard to, especially through social media. And again, you know, like the conversations, how deep the conversation can get. And it's like, there's no way to express what I'm really trying to impress upon people through social media. There's no way. There's no way. Even there's not even a video. It's an experience. And so all I can really do is post photos, and the photos just look like, oh, he's making people push a car, he's killing them, or great before and after photos. She grew a butt. And it's like, that's the physical manifestation of, you know, finding your presence in under pressure. You know what I mean? Like that's the physical manifestation of this person used to wiggle their way out of a difficult situation, but now they've stayed under the pressure long enough to find that greater is within than is without. And that is only reason why I worked out. I used to punch holes in walls. Like, I had to find a way to, you know, get through whatever story I was telling myself throughout my life. And this was a vehicle for me. And it was really just trying to share that vehicle with others. And so, but even when people came, it was like, yeah, hey man, I'm trying to get biceps like you. I'm trying to get a butt like Liv. And it's like, all right, well, you know, hopefully, and then we said, like, hopefully you get it through the process, but you came in right away, knew what you want. So I was like, oh my gosh.
I appreciate that. I do. And again, like, having the space and the environment to where I could unequivocally state that, like, yo, like, excuse my French, like, cut the BS. Like, you and I both know that this ain't what this is about. So that's really cool. And I just, you know, the year in which I started this project and really honed in on Black History Month, I actually kept it going because March, as we know, is also Women's History Month. And so during that time, I had the opportunity to celebrate Liv, which is your partner. Mm-hmm. And just working out with her and Liv, you know, we're all water signs, so I will bring that into it. So Braden and I are near birthday twins. We are Cancers. Mm-hmm. And Liv is a Scorpio. And for whatever that means, I've seen Cancers who can be more, I don't know if it's extroverted, but I think that we actually spend the time to say the words. Where I think Scorpios really, they're not about the words. Like, they can feel it, they'll communicate it, but it's very minimal. Mm-hmm. And there's times where I've been with Liv and worked out with Liv, like, and we all go through struggle, and I'm grateful for the challenges that I've been met with, because that's how you ascend, right? Mm-hmm. But I remember when my body didn't know its greatness at times, and I'm like, man, Liv, I'm really struggling, or man, Liv, like, can you believe, like, and she's like, I don't see it. You're doing great. It was just that, like, it's just real, like, poignant, like, no. And it's like, but that means so much. And so that also has helped me too, because I don't feed into it. Mm-hmm. Like, even if my body feels a certain way, maybe at a moment, or it thinks it does, I remind it, like, oh no, you're better than this. You're greater than this. You're already healed, you know? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
that is
just
Liv.
a little plug for her.
That is Liv 100,000%. I mean, she is incredible. We are 2 months from, you know, having our son. Obviously, she's delivering the boy. And like, just to see what she does is incredible, because, you know, she's not like just laying down. And you know, this is a different type of pregnancy for her. I think it's because it's a boy. I'm not sure. But it's a different type of pregnancy. But like, she's still doing things around the house, she's literally building. I mean, she built all this stuff that you see. She's such a designer. And then how she's like with the team, like I think she's doing a team call right now while she prepares for the corporate call tomorrow. And she's checking on every single person on the team. Like, she does so much. And it's like, she just doesn't allow herself to, and not in a way where she doesn't take care of herself, but she really just has a different level, different standard. Even when I'm training with her, I started off, that's how we met. I trained her. She wanted me to train her. But now it's like, man, her standards is like, you know, it'd be like, I might have put up a PR. It's the best I've ever performed in the gym. And I'll be like, all right, take a little, you know, a little adjustment break. I can't even adjust. She's like, nah, 3 more. Like, what? What do you mean? it's just a different type of standard. So, you know, I'm appreciative of it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to get a little bit into the book again and revisit it and just paint a picture.
Mm-hmm.
When provided the prompt to identify an influential Black historical figure, Oshodin matter-of-factly responded with the usual suspects, of course, and went on to list Malcolm X, Carter G. Woodson, and Huey P. Newton. Brandon explains how his uncle was a member of the Black Panther Party, exposing him to a lot of books and knowledge early in life. He says, the autobiography of Malcolm X turned me into a voracious reader. Before I read any personal development books, I read the Willie Lynch letters, the Miseducation of the Negro, and many more. It helped me understand a lot about where we had been and why my mind works the way it does. Slave conditioning. I thank Malcolm for that. This brother deserves a day. Martin Luther King Jr. taught me to see past where we have been with a forgiving heart and boldly walk into the dream of a better future. Much respect. I thank him for that. And those were your words. So let's talk a little bit about those usual suspects, as you say. Malcolm, Martin, Carter G. Woodson, and he's who wrote the Miseducation of the Negro, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I started that, but it's like my mind isn't yet primed to get all the way through it. Mm-hmm. But I will proudly say and gratefully say that I have read all of Malcolm X's autobiography, to which I'm so it took me to a whole other level. So I'm grateful that he was even in a position with Alex Haley to be able to write that down.
Right. Yeah. So of course honestly, I learned a lot about Martin Luther King in school. That was more like the school thing. But I learned more about like I said, the Black Panther Party, everybody within there, how that went down. I remember, I can just anytime I think about that, I can just remember being at my aunt's house. My uncle had this Black Panther, and it was like it was a real Black Panther, not a live Black Panther, but a little statue, but it was like a velvet, it had the fur on it, you know what I mean? And I remember I used to always take it, and you know what I mean, and go play with it like it was a toy, and they just kept bringing me back to how important it is and what it represented. And I always like to read, I always like to read. It's my youngest daughter is like that. It's so funny to see, because she'll pretend like she's reading, and she'll be point to me, and then she'll act like she read it. And that's how I was, I would find books and read, so I would get into everything that they had at an early age, and I think it really put that in a book called Monster. I forgot to mention back when I think we had this initial conversation, but it really did shape my mind at a young age. And honestly, it made me a little, I wouldn't say racist, but I didn't want to, deal with anybody outside that race. And I was in Mansfield, Ohio, so it was only black and white. There was no Mexicans, no Asians. I didn't see a Somali until I was 17. I was the only African. My father's African, so it was it's very, black and white. And so, yeah, that definitely shaped my mind in a way where I understood, the true history, and it made me very angry. I can always remember every time I ever got in trouble in schools because of history class, or they'll be teaching, or it's Black History Month. Let's play Remember the Titans every single day. You know what I mean? For Black History Month, or they talking about how Black Panthers were basically the Ku Klux Klan, and everybody in the class agreeing when nobody really knew the history, and it's the comparisons. I definitely remember those days, very vividly. I'm glad that I had those experiences. I had a whole library I gave to a lot of the kids. I think it was 2015. I gave to a lot of kids I was mentoring, so that they could have that same experience of educating themselves, because I think that education saved me from going down a path of self-destruction, or worse, self-hate, because during that time, that transition from middle school to high school, kids really started going from fighting each other for personal issues to fighting each other from north side versus west side, east side versus south side. I'm not even talking about Columbus. I'm talking about Mansfield, Ohio, which is this big. It makes you can fall on the other side of town. You could be on one side of town and literally trip into the other side of town. And so I remember having those Willie Lynch papers in my hands and taking them, and I was good everywhere. So I would take them to both sides and be like, yo, look how the division is, young versus old, light versus dark. This is exactly what, and, you know, they didn't have that background. They didn't have that foundation, that no roots in the standing. And so, you know, a lot of them, you know, a lot of people threw their life away at a young age, fighting over something that was nothing. So I'm grateful that it, I'm just grateful to be able to have that understanding.
Could you talk a little bit about the fact that you're an author? Maybe future projects that may or may not be down the line for you in that realm, and then what you're reading currently?
What am I reading currently? Honestly, Olivia will laugh at this question too, because, like, you know, we really traveled the world, and everywhere we go, I got like 6, 7 books. And I don't even necessarily read them when I'm out. I just gotta have them just in case. You know what I mean? I take books in places that you would not. I take books to beach vacations because I know I'm not about to sit there, but just in case, I got all type of different ones. So, what am I reading currently? Always, every single day, I'm reading A Course in Miracles. Every single day for 8 years straight, 9 years maybe. I'm reading A Course in Miracles. I'm really digging John C. Maxwell, The Leader's Greatest Return right now. Alchemy by Paul Selig, and I'm listening to Neville Goddard. It's called The Pruning Shears of Revision. Neville Goddard. I wouldn't consider myself to be an author though, only because I consider to be co-authored in a book with Jack Canfield, a bunch of others, but I didn't like write the whole book. It was honestly just my life. You know, I was out in California, and the opportunity, I was with these trainers way more successful than me. Months before, I was homeless, and life started to shift for me very rapidly. And I was out there with some of the most successful fitness coaches in the world, Dax Moy, Seven Figure Sam, who just passed, you know, God bless, Armando Cruz, a bunch of guys. And that was one of the opportunities. They had Barack Obama's accountant out there. Like, it was a different room, you know what I mean? And I'm grateful to even have been in that room because it expanded my mind so much. But no, that was the opportunity that rose. They were all getting into the books and doing that, and it was just such like a regular thing. Like, hey, you know, you should get in this book too. You know, you share your story, because they heard my story and how I got in the room, because that was the thing. Like, they had Barack Obama's like tax guy out there, and they're talking about ways to invest $100,000, $200,000 into projects going on in the city and the tax benefits, and they were going over stuff that like the money that they were going to give away. I didn't even have a goal to earn yet. Like, it was way over my head. And so I just kept it real. It's like, honestly, I just came from I don't even have a gym. I don't even own a gym. You guys know what you're doing. And as I shared my story, they're like, you need to connect with him. And then that's how I got into I think it's Celebrity Press. And all they asked me for was my story. And so, like, my grammar is terrible. And so I literally just wrote it down, edited it, sent it to them, and they published it in the book alongside a bunch of other authors. That's how all of Jack Canfield's books are, kind of like Chicken Soup for the Soul, a collection of stories. So, or yours even, you know, it's a collection of many different people. So
yeah,
it was honestly just my story up until that point.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back a little bit, because you do it to me. Like, there's certain words that we can't say, or energies that I just said it, right? That we're not permitted, and we don't permit ourselves to say. And so when you say I have horrible grammar, you've said that over a number of years, and I don't believe that to be true. And you don't believe that to be true about yourself either. So you don't own that.
I don't.
You're a voracious reader, and you are an educator and a voracious writer. Like, I sit and I admire the fact that the content that you pump out every day. And I understand that you might say, you know, I'm just doing that for me. but by you, that's what writers do. Like we literally, they are writing for them, and then they share it, and then it's so inviting and encouraging and empowering for others to be like, hey, like I have something to say too, or I can connect to that. So you have beautiful grammar. It is exactly what it's supposed to be, and it will grow as much as you want it to.
I'll receive, and I appreciate it.
Cool. Let's see. I want to get a little bit more into the book. I know you got your second workout of the day to get to, so I want to respect that. Let's see. I want to talk a little bit about the call to action. It says, if the nation has yet to declare Malcolm X Day, it is our job to continue to come together with advocating and action. Currently, there are 15 states that participate in the celebration and observation of the life of El Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. And for those of you who are able and willing and eager, Columbus, Ohio, where I reside, now celebrates our Human Activist Day on the day of his birth, May 19th. And you're always welcome to join us if you're able. So that is something that a group that I'm involved with that is actually doing the media production for these videos and these interviews, Giame Journey, they do a Malcolm X Day on the 19th. Last year, they did it as a DigiFest to where it was virtual, but it is out there, and it's something that you mentioned. And I feel like with us recognizing certain individuals and recognizing the lack or the need or the opportunity for things is actually how we set and create the space for things to happen. So I did want to mention that. I'm going to go on and read a little bit, unless you have something to say.
No, I just think that that's really cool. I mean, I always celebrate, Malcolm X. It was, that book was just powerful to me, especially at a young age. Like, man, I'm grateful to have read that. It's funny that I even read that at that age, at that time. That's what I mean. It's like everything happens in just such an odd way. I would pretend that I was doing something else and be reading. Like, you know what I mean? Like you hanging out with friends. Oh yeah, I'm about to go, connect with this girl, whatever the case may be. And really, I gotta hide that I'm reading. Like, it's just thinking back, it's like a whole nother life away that I was so embarrassed that I was a reader and I'd be going to libraries and stuff. But man, that really, turned the lights on. So
it's so cool. I wish I was a reader earlier. I was so busy achieving and getting the A's and being the president of this and the captain of that I didn't feel like I had time to read. It was really a struggle for me to read. I didn't read my first book until I was 25, and that's because I had gotten ill, and I literally had no energy to do anything else but look pathetic on a couch. And I was like, well, shoot, I might as well read. So I think that to know that, and even for me, just a few years ago when I finally did read Malcolm X's autobiography, I have to be honest, and say that I was intimidated because you pick up this book and it's this thick.
Yeah,
so
yeah. This was short, yeah.
Yeah, to know as a young person, it makes sense that you were choosing to dive into something like that, because now there literally is nothing that intimidates you or your family. And I think that that's again what sets you all apart and what makes it inviting to everyone else. Why are we intimidated? We can go this way too, Yeah. So it says in the book, I think it's quite clear where Oshodin gleans his superpowers from. You know the quote, if you want to keep something from the people, hide it in a book. Well, Brandon found it, and he does not hesitate to put others on game. You can tell by his pearly whites featured alongside the stack of books he held up to his ear while taking part in Instagram's #phonebook challenge. This challenge, created by rapper and activist Lori Jamar, played off of the overly used money phone gesture, which became a part of rap culture and the rise of social media influence. I'd wager to say that the book, representing knowledge, wisdom, culture, history, and outlet of expression, was the predecessor to the former, as never forget, this was the root of hip hop. And then I'll go on to talk about KRS-One and Rakim and Sugar Hill, and then other individuals like Hove that take the opportunity in hip hop to educate and to tell a story. And so with that, just want to give you the opportunity to share a little bit of what hip hop means and why Hove? Why you chose Jay-Z, Sean Carter?
Honestly, for me, so it's funny because really, it's not. I don't have like a super love for hip hop. I honestly don't listen to music. I don't listen to.
I know, because we would be working out, and you're like, no music, tap into the mind.
Yeah.
And we're all like,
I know they hated it.
We're trying to escape so we can push through this. And you're like, no, lock in. It's this feeling that you want.
Exactly. I want, because that's what it's about. We call it the authentic heartbeat. Be present with that. Don't wiggle. Don't disassociate. You are right here, right now. This is really happening. Be with it. So it's the thing is, like, if I were like, I wouldn't even know any new songs. And honestly, for me, it's not Jay-Z like that. It's Rick Ross. So like Rick Ross is truly motivation me for whatever reason, because I'm not really on the lifestyle that he's on. But he just
It's the beard.
That's where the beard came, but that's where the beard came from, honestly. And I look back, it's funny. I remember being in track, indoor track. I'll never forget. I had Mario. We know Mario. His little MP3 player, and that Hustling came on. And I stopped playing sports that day. I didn't even run that day. It was immediately like, man, I'm about to build a business. Like right then, like I want to do something else. Like I connected with that energy. It's not even what I was saying. Sometimes the energy behind it. But that year that you had asked me, it was Jay-Z because of the experiences that I was having at that time. And it's like, I honestly never listened to Jay-Z growing up because I couldn't connect with the music. But it's because I had never been in the position. You know what I mean? And then that year I started to I was listening to Jay-Z before, but it's like when I would hear it, I was like, oh, he is dropping like this. He's got, albums called The Blueprints. I didn't even see the blueprint because like I wasn't building anything. I wasn't in any of these situations. I was not in any of the street situations, but just in a situation where you're like leading and managing people in different relationships, and how people try to use and abuse you, and how to move through these situations. Like it was literally like song after song. I was in a situation and I was listening to how to get out, like what to do in it, through Jay-Z's lyrics. So I was like, that's why I said, I know. Anywhere during that time frame, especially that on to the next one was like, man, a prayer.
Yeah. I feel it.
That's what it meant to me that year, like that whole time frame. And still, I mean, I'm obviously inspired by somebody who was able to completely turn their life around. And I wouldn't even say turn their life around, because when we look through history, we look at families as they are now, but when you look at the root of how they really got their success, like their great-great-grandfathers and things like that, it started in some bootlegging or it started in something else. So, but it took generations for them to clean it up and get to a different point. And I'm so inspired by Jay-Z because what typically takes whole families, generations to do, he did in his lifetime, like I think 20 something to 50-year lifetime, like so a 30-year lifespan. He took it from like the very bottom of hustling to like, billion-dollar business, like, and really in your 50s as a man, when you look at people that hit their peak, like he's just now hitting the peak of because now you got complete control over your hormones, more dominant over your mind. You got kids, you got more reasons to stay focused, be more mindful of your time. So I'm just inspired by the growth. It's not even about the success or glamour. I'm about growth. I'm inspired by the growth. And he said all these things in the beginning, and you see all these things 30 years later that he was saying 30 years ago, and it's like, okay, I see the vision. I see where I'm at right now. I see what's possible, and I see the situation I'm in. Okay, I see that's a part of it. So this is not just something that's happening to me. You know what I mean? Like this is a part of that process. I'm being ripped, I'm being pulled. I'm not being ripped apart. I'm being stretched, and this is how I handle myself in this situation, because I see somebody who's in that same situation. You know what I mean? And how it was handled. And these were your results. All all right, well, let me just follow the blueprint, because I don't have a man around me, you know, a father or anybody that I would say that I respect in that way, that I can just be like, you know, when I go to everybody around me, if I tell them about some of the situation, I don't get to really talk about, you know, things that's going on in my life, because I don't ever want to put anybody else's business out there. And two, it's like people be quick for the retaliation part of things, like, you should do this. So it's like, man, it's just me and God with these things. we riding around. So to see somebody actually verbalize what was going on and how to move through it is just, to me, it's just that's what I needed at that time in my life.
Respect. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, like, even when you're sharing that and thinking about Hove and thinking about you, it's like, and to a certain extent, because Hove, like you said, was very transparent about his struggle, and you've shared some, but that's never been my experience with you. But it's like that whole transferable skill set, right? Mm-hmm. And like the core of the man, and the fact that we can grow. When I say man, I'm referring to human. Yeah. Like, we might be in a place, but there's something beautiful about us when we're in that place. And that beauty doesn't necessarily change, but it grows and it adapts and it adjusts to the situation that we're in. And I feel like Hove is a great example of that. And what's so beautiful is that he was able to get his out in real time, like what's going on with him. And just like what you say, it's like, and the fact that you've put yours out on social media, if nothing else, where there's a true account of where you are, and we can go back and look at that. And it's just, again, it's something beautiful to see. Like, man, this is who he's always been. Like you said, you've been in Course of Miracles for about 8 or 9 years. That's who you've always been. So it's nothing new. And not to chastise somebody for it to be new, or for it to be something that they want to pick up. But it's like that consistency, and like knowing that even if we were in a difficult or challenging situation, like, we still have the core of who we are to fall on, like, or to stand up on. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you say here, it says, given an opportunity to speak of himself, Brandon will genuinely divert the energy to reflect on family and his faith. Quite naturally, this was the focus of his Instagram feature, paralleled with the opportunity to pay homage to his self-identified Black historical influence. And you said here, it says, I gotta be 100. My number one historical Black figure is Jay-Z. I can relate to him more than anyone. I feel like our paths are very similar to the point that I can literally follow the blueprint. So you already mentioned that. I go on to say, Oshodin is an entrepreneur extraordinaire. Not only is he extremely business-minded, goal-driven, and solution-oriented, but he is also a student of the game. We recently talked about his love and appreciation for reading. I said this dude reads a book a week, if not one a day. I don't know if that's still the case, but I'm sure it is. You work out to audiobooks. When many of us elect to zone out to loud obscenities over a dope beat, he chooses to focus in on a gains trifecta. So it's so funny that I'm a little behind, because we're talking about things, and then through the chapter, it's like, that's always been who you are. That's exactly what's captured.
Yeah, I'm still doing that.
Yeah. So let's see what else. Yeah, man, you've already spoken on a lot. What I do want to say with the time that we have available is that in looking at you, and for me, and for Spirit Over Flesh, the platform, looking at this spirituality and the spiritual path and identity of you and Hove, I actually brought one other person in that we already spoke about, and that is Malcolm. Because what I see about what was captured for Malcolm when he was here, what's captured with Jay-Z, and how I see you captured and represented, is just the family. And it's consistent across the board. Like, you go back and you look at pictures of Malcolm, and you have the ones that he looks very astute and studied and present, right? And Hove the same way. But it's really hard to not be flooded with pictures of them as the family man, because that's truly who from what I can tell, who they are. but what I know is that's truly who you are. And I think it's a beautiful thing. So how important and is an intentional decision to keep family as the precipice of who you are and your number one, or like, how is that a part of your dynamic?
I mean, it's got to be intentional because everything is done with intention, but it's not like I have to force it. It's the inspiration, it's the motivation, it's the reason. It's even like I got like my consistency with everything I do has gone up because like I have a son on the way, and I know that like every single child I've had has changed me. Stop even from before that. Just being with Olivia has changed me. I like every single new person in the family has changed me and stretched me and grown me for the better. And so like I'm just not even like I wouldn't even be me without my family. Like these people have literally made me who I am. Like, you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. Well, we're literally producing these people, and they're like coming from eternity into time with a gift for me. And it changes you, and it's changing me, and I don't take it lightly, and I want to be a good, I'm trying to find the words, because it's not like I want to be a good example, and it's not like I just want to make sure I leave. I don't really work with, it's like, I want to make sure you got $1 million in the stash, or you got to, you never have to worry about finances, because honestly, I think that they'll be able to do it. You know what I mean? Especially like Boost gets savvy. You know what I mean? She's so intuitive, for one, and she's not like she knows, period. She just knows. Like, it's funny. We were going to, we was like, let's go to the park and get a workout in Hoover. We ain't been in Columbus, we've been out of town, so we moved back. And Anastasia has not been to Hoover Dam since she was maybe 3 years old. She's 7 now. And she was like, what, it's been so long. What if it's closed? What if there's something new going on? I got a feeling. We're like, no, Hoover Doover. Because I've been there. I mean, I've lived here most of my life. Hoover's never been closed. And when we get there and it's closed before reconstruction, not open until 2022. And she's just like that. Like, if it's a rainstorm and she says something, we're going to listen to her on which route to take. Like, we literally take her advice because she just be knowing. So it's like our youngest, everybody has that gift. And so, family is at the forefront because like that it literally is me. It reminds me to trust my intuition. My youngest daughter, Mara, truly reminds me, ask for forgiveness, not for permission. Do it. Because she going to do it. She going to do it, and then she going to say sorry while she doing it. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just like, she just living her life. And he's like, Mara, you funny. She's like, no, I'm just Mara. Like, she just, she know what she's saying, too. It's not like she's just a cute kid. It's like, no, I'm a Mara. This is me. Like, I got to be me. And it's just like these people around me. And so, like, I have my son on the way, and or our son on the way, and it's like, it's not like a competition thing, but it's just like, I know I got to step it up because I already know he's going to be like, a bit of live, where it's like that high intensity and high standards, and me too. And it's just like, I don't want to put no lid on my family. That's what it is. Like, I don't want to be the weak link. So it's like, I'm trying to grow so I don't, because they're going to grow. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm trying not to be the one that's like keeping us small. So that's why, for me, that's why it's family, because we just producing dope beings. And Olivia is dope. So it's just, I got to. I have no choice.
That's I like that so much. And I've learned within this past, I'd say, couple years, like how present, like I knew it, but I really experienced how present new humans are when they come here. Like you said, they've come from eternity to present time. Mm-hmm. And so it's like being able to communicate with babies, right? Like, and hearing them even before they come, like, and knowing like when friends are about to have a child, or knowing like when they've gone into labor, and the parents of the child are like, did you say something to her? Did you say? And it's like, no, the child told me.
Mm-hmm.
And just be open to receive that, because I know how you all have always talked about Booski.
Mm-hmm.
When I've met her, we have not connected, because I know that Booski also is she's very intentional about her energy.
Mm-hmm.
and connecting, and like who she latches onto or not. Is like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not even asking you that. It's just an observation that I've had, and it's something that I really respect. And I feel like if we only respected and honored our children as much as they deserve, we will continually be blessed because of it.
Yeah.
Because they know so much.
Yeah, it's not like you gotta teach your kid. Honestly, it's like I don't know how that thought came about, where it's like we gotta just teach our kids. Like, we gotta teach our kids how to operate. Like, I don't know. It's just like it's a back and forth relationship. I've learned so much from them and experienced so much from them. And I mean, it's little things, small, big things. You know what I mean? And Booski could be in another room. I could be doing a Zoom. You know what I mean? And then get done with this, go in there, sit on the couch. And she'll be like playing with her doll's hair, and she's like, you could have said that better. And I'm like, could have said, what do you mean? She was like, kind of, be kind of rude. I'm like, dang, you felt that? And then really go back and think about it. Like, no, she right though. Like, she just be knowing, and like they do know. So it's like, but of course it's like, she does stuff that needs correction. So it's a relationship. It's a relationship. It's back and forth. It's not like I'm the authority over her. It's like, let me guide you so you know the rules of gravity and things like it. There's some things you should know about this dimension, but you definitely know some things that you should share with me, and we can bring these notes together and operate together at a higher level.
Exactly. It's like I'm growing with you.
Yeah, or no, 100%.
Yeah. So this is the last little excerpt that I'm gonna read. It's titled "Show Love." It says, "So I'm going to tell you the truth about showing love. Everyone isn't receptive to it, and they don't have to be. It's often said that those who exhibit love are the same who lack it. In this case, I must be at some deficit for an emotion that I so freely give. However, just because I or you are in a position to give and show love, and our opportunity to distribute flowers to our peers and those around us presents itself, does not entail that person on the receiving end is being required to extend their hand to receive. If it is on your heart to edify those you come across, either doing big things or well on their way, make up your mind now that you will do your part and contribute to the cause by doing just that. We all were created to support and to live in concert with one another. Just remember, as often as you are supporting others, that you are granting yourself that same respect and appreciation, if not more. As well, be intentional about receiving." And so I just say that because I know that it can be uncomfortable when somebody's like, "Oh my goodness, you're so great." But you've always, but it's genuine, and you've always received it with such gratitude and grace. And I have him preface this before, and so just wanted to ask you, in the spirit of giving flowers in the moment, is there anyone today that you wanted to lift up as an up-and-coming trailblazer, with the consideration of Black history or not? Is there anyone that comes to spirit for you?
In what way? Because, like, honestly, I am around incredible people. Like, are we talking about like, famous people or people that are already ahead? Because like, I'm living with Olivia Oshodin for one. So it's honestly, it's like, it's mind numbing. Like, what she's able to do, especially knowing the type of, like, her body's being ripped apart every single second, every single day, nonstop. So if it would be anybody, it would have to be my wife. And not because she's my wife, but because it's like I'm around so many people. I meet so many men and women, And yeah, she's literally just one of a kind. And then when we look at, and if I look past her, it would just be everyone not everyone, but to be honest, but a lot of the leaders within our Rising Phoenix community who are doing an incredible job pushing past their comfort zones and developing a diamond mind just by connecting and serving people and helping people become the best versions of themselves. So how much time do we have? I'll name everybody.
We would like to kick off our month with talking about health in general, but I had reached out to my old friend from back in our college days, Dr. Ann Olivia Asega Garrett-Mills. I affectionately today call her Ado Asega. I reached out to her because the last 2 Decembers, roughly, my mother-in-law, who is 88 presently, had been coming down with UTIs or urinary tract infections. And some of the symptoms I was seeing from that, both of which hospitalized her, had me concerned. I was like wondering, how widespread is this? And so I mentioned it to one of the elders in the village, and she said that another one of our family members in the village had to be hospitalized for the same reason. So I reached out to my beloved friend, Dr. Ann. And again, from now on, I'll just be referring to her as Ado. But I reached out to Ado and asked her, if she might be willing to do a piece with us regarding this. And due to her brilliance and her keen perception, she said that she would like to cover something a little more general. And so, having said that, my beloved sister, welcome back to Columbus, Ohio, where family and friends have missed you and look forward to seeing you again. Tell us something about yourself. What you doing these days?
Thank you, brother, for giving me the opportunity to come home for just a moment. My temporary home, which is Columbus, Ohio. My permanent home has been Denver, Colorado, which is where I've born and raised. I am living there now. I have many names in Columbus. People knew me as Sister Ayana. They also knew me as Ann or Dr. Ann. I've also been known as Ado Asega. And here in Denver, Colorado, I am known as Dr. Ann Garrett-Mills professionally, and professionally to my community, Dr. Asega, affectionately and professionally. I am a mother of 6 humans, only one of whom is still a child. He's 15. And I have 5 adult children who are all doing well, and an incredible husband, Tunda Asega, who hails from Columbus, Ohio. I always tease him about it. And I tease him because he is a sci-fi fan and a businessman. And I always want him to know that he's settled in Denver. So that's who I am. That's what I'm up to. Professionally, I'm working as the Chief Medical Officer at Aurora Mental Health Center. And I am a psychiatrist practicing in the Denver metropolitan area. Is that what you're looking for, bro?
Yeah, and so just so the family knows how linked in you are to the community here, tell us a little bit about your experiences while you were here in Columbus.
Absolutely. So I left Denver at 17, which is when I met you. Went to Oberlin College, where I met many Columbus humans who are there doing incredible things, including Malcolm Cash and Craig Comedy, and of course, the incredible Calvin Kwame Keishler. Calvin Keishler introduced me to the idea of Columbus as I applied for medical school at Ohio State, and his family embraced me like their family while I was there. I was in Ohio for a total of 10 years. I spent much of my time at the African Center for Study and Worship with Baba Kelsey and Brother Nomo X, Ashe, and so many incredible human beings who shaped who I became as a physician, as a woman, as a human being. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio.
And we give thanks for that. And just real briefly, share with them our Sister Patricia Williams Shule experience.
That is so dear to my heart. So I have to give honor where honor is due to brother ancestor Hannibal Freak and Kofi Lamote, who is not an ancestor, who started the Council of Independent Black Institutions and a series of Saturday schools known as Shules, or Independent Black Schools, where I was introduced to that concept in Oberlin. Brother Kwame and I and a lot of other enterprising young Africans in the Columbus, Ohio area started a Sister Patricia Williams Shule named after an ancestor, Sister Patricia Williams, who believed in adjunctive, strong African-centered education for children. And we, in her footsteps, built an institution that was pretty marvelous and helped to nurture many young minds to self-discovery, self-love, and responsible citizenship to the African world community.
Thank you for that. So when I had reached out to you about urinary tract infections, you saw that there were a kind of masking, if you will, of ailments going on within the elder community. And, I'll let, you can take it in any direction you want to, but, there's this notion of our health as African people in general here in the Americas. But there's this kind of masking of what's really going on with our elders. And so could you elaborate on that? Help us understand, what you've been seeing? And
absolutely, I'm happy to talk about the health needs of the elders in our community. And so I think I will just give some basic information first, and then I'll build on that. So I want everybody to remember that I am a psychiatrist by training. What that means is I did graduate from medical school and I did a residency program, and I still take care of people in terms of general medical conditions, but my specialty area is psychiatry. And so I will, through that lens, talk about the health needs of the folks in our community. It turns out that every piece of the body, from the brain to the kidneys, to the lungs, to the heart, are all connected. So a human being is a full system, even though Western trained physicians focus on one system or another. So as a psychiatrist, my primary interest is in the brain and how people function because of the brain and the brain's ability to do what it's needing to do to get that human being through life in a healthy fashion. Even so, there are many, many illnesses that can present as if they are brain illnesses. And so I'm kind of approaching your discussion around urinary tract infections from that perspective. So the first thing I want to share with you is that the body is not the same at 6, 26, 36, 46, 56, 66, 76, 86, 96, and so on. There is a different physiological trajectory for the human body, both developmentally and as time goes on, based on whether or not your cells are dividing or senescing in totality. So in other words, young people are in these bodies where the cells are dividing. We see that when, an example I'll give is my 15-year-old broke his toe. It was very clear on an x-ray 2 weeks later, there was no sign that it had happened. Those cells were dividing so quickly that he was able to heal quickly. That is very different, for example, for a 50-year-old person who, if they break a bone, might find that they are recovering from that from a much longer period of time, which is, again, very different, where a broken bone at 80 could lead to even death. So the body, depending on your developmental stage physiologically or psychiatrically, neurologically, you will present differently with different illnesses. Again, every human being is an individual. So there are some individual differences, but I am going to speak about the group differences as the body ages. So when you reached out to me to talk about urinary tract infections and the dramatic way they can present in the elder community, one of the things that I became aware of is that most human beings do not know the difference between delirium and dementia. So the hallmark of what I think I can share with our community today is that there are two medical conditions. One of them is called delirium and another is called dementia. Dementia is pretty well known these days because people have Alzheimer's dementia and other kinds of dementia. And so I'm going to set dementia just to the side. It is a progressive loss of brain functioning over time that is commonly seen in eldership. It is not necessarily something that all elders experience, but it is something that is more common in the elder stage of life. And I think we all have heard about such and such with Alzheimer's or this person with dementia, etc. Delirium, however, is generally a confusional state brought on by a physiological condition. And what I mean by that is that the brain is suddenly not functioning because of something going on physically. That's why I brought the point in earlier about the connection, the brain-body connection. People tend to think of the brain as being one thing and the body as being another, yet they are very connected. So when elders have problems with infections in general, they have an increased risk of delirium. Now, a little kid can get delirium, a middle-aged person can get delirium, but it's way more common in elders to respond with delirium when they have an infection. And one of the most common infections is a urinary tract infection. So it is a common thing that an elder is brought into the emergency room and folks are concerned about dementia or concerned about something else. Grandma's just not being herself. Grandpa is behaving irrationally, can't sleep. There are all kinds of behavioral and emotional and neurological manifestations that can occur because someone has a physiological illness. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, you and I, we've had a number of friends with lupus. And, you know, so there are similar kinds of situations where something's going on, but because of the confusion that lupus may cause, it may be diagnosed as something else. I mean, for example, when I first came down with diabetes, they wrote it off as a kidney infection. And then I practically was in a coma. And from what I understood, I may have been in a coma. And then we happened to have a doctor from Columbus come in and say, oh, no, this is diabetes, you know. And so yeah, these can cause serious issues with, you know, confusing what the real issue is.
Correct. So a sudden change in mental status, meaning the person was okay on Monday mentally and in functioning normally, but maybe on Wednesday or Thursday, they are not okay functioning normally, is often a sign that there is something else going on. So a change in mental status does not necessarily mean a psychiatric illness. And in fact, in my experience, it usually does not. It can, but it is usually not a psychiatric illness, especially with advanced age. It is usually something physiological. So lupus is a little bit different. Lupus is an autoimmune disorder that can actually cause some damage in other ways, but you can have a delirium with lupus, with an acute lupus attack of your kidneys or your lungs as well. But the delirium is the word that I want to put out there. I'm being really deliberate by saying delirium, even though they sound the same. Delirium is an acute confusional state Why am I being so deliberate about using the word delirium? I worry about the relationship between Black and people and African Americans, African continental Africans, when we go into an emergency room and we say something. I worry that when we do that, we are often not taken seriously. And I think there are plenty of studies around health equity that would demonstrate that Black people are not listened to in the way that others are listened to, predominantly white people. So when we go into the emergency room and grandma is ill, the word that I wish her loved ones would use in the ER is the word delirium. What I wish the loved ones would do is use that word deliberately, because it conveys something different to healthcare providers. And so just a quick moment of truth. The reality is, if you are not armed with the kind of academia that is required to get your loved one to be navigated through the healthcare system, you are at risk of not getting the right outcome. So the reason I'm using the term delirium is, if you use that word with the EMTs, if you use that word with the people in the emergency room, if you show that dogged determination of getting to the bottom of this with the people that are providing the care for your loved one, you are more likely to get a better outcome. Delirium is an acute, meaning a sudden, confusional state. If people come to your house and grandma is acting differently and they have not ever met her, and they can't hear from you that she is acting differently, they may dismiss this as dementia and leave her at home, when what she really needs is to get to the ER and get treatment, to get a urinalysis so that people can see that there are organisms in her urine, and to get IV antibiotics or oral antibiotics to treat those organisms before it progresses to something called sepsis, which has a really high fatality rate. Sepsis is infection in your blood. The goal of treating infections in your finger, in your mouth, in your urinary tract, the reason doctors give you antibiotics is because they need to kill those bacteria before those bacteria take over your system. Now, sepsis is common in our community, and it can happen to someone at 30 or 40 or 50. But as you can imagine, with advanced age, there is an increased risk of sepsis. So when someone has a urinary tract infection, and if they don't know that they have that, and you don't know that they have that, if you don't get treatment quickly, it can progress to a sepsis, and then you've got more problems. So the word delirium is a really important word to learn, because you can say, she has a delirium. She was not behaving this way. She's never behaved like this. He has always gone fishing on Saturday. It doesn't make sense. He never had problems sleeping. The loved ones really need to be clear that this is an acute, a current, new problem, and not a long-standing problem. Another piece of wisdom that I'd like to share is that as you get older, and if you have other health problems, it becomes harder to sort out what the cause of the delirium is. But you want people to sort that out. So there are often more tests required. It should be, it is a commonplace. We have a friend, a mutual friend, who's an ER doc, and he will tell you that the first thing you do when you hear about a delirium is you check urine, you check blood, you look for infection. You also listen very carefully to the history, right? If someone comes in and they have been having increased urination, and I'm kind of speaking to your diabetes story, right? Increased problem with all kinds of other things. You listen to that history, and that would give you some sense that this is not one thing, this is another, or that you need to look in a different place. So part of what happens when people come to the emergency room is the goal is to figure out what is causing the emergency. And this is very important, because oftentimes people believe that the emergency room is a place to go to get care. It isn't. It is a place to go to get an emergency managed. Sometimes that emergency needs hospitalization. Sometimes that emergency needs immediate IV antibiotics or hydration. So another cause of delirium is dehydration in elders, FYI, by the way. There are lots of causes of delirium with elders. Elders have a much more sensitive system, and their need for high quality foods, their need for exercise, their need for close attention from caregivers or from loved ones is really important, because they definitely present with different illnesses than others do.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
And a mindful. I mean, you know, I keep thinking back, you know, and I keep thinking back because in December of 2019, you know, it scared the mess out of me. So the day was going, and I know that mom is up and down all night, you know, because of urination, right? And the next day came, she's sitting in her chair, and, you know, she normally sits in her chair, and she may, you know, go to sleep or what have you. But, you know, I kept going in, you know, calling mom, and, you know, and I thought she was sleeping in her chair. So I go to her chair, tap her and say, "Mom, you okay?" And she's, you know, yeah, you know, but in other words, the first word that came to me was that there was a lethargy. And then next thing I know, you know, I'm back in my office here where I'm talking to you, and I hear her moaning. And so because her blood sugar may fall, and she may not, you've seen me when my blood sugar falls, so you can imagine how that can be. And I imagined her, you know, in a low blood sugar state. So I'm running up to the kitchen and, you know, calling around, mom, you know, because I don't know where she's at this point. And she ended up being in the room right across the hall from our own. But I find her on the floor. And what it was is, unconsciously, she was trying to get up. But, you know, she just didn't have the energy because, you know, she had fallen. And so, you know, then I went into automatic mode, you know, 911 and such. However, I would like to convey to the family that a lot of times when we have elders within the household, make sure you keep a medication list on hand and available for such occasions, particularly today, when a lot of us aren't allowed to go to the hospitals or emergency rooms with our loved ones. And so I just wanted to share that.
That's so important. And so there are two other things that I would like to share. I think you hit on another really important point that I want to make. When you find someone is in an acute confusional state, there's something wrong, they're not behaving that way, that is absolutely 100% an emergency. Delirium is an emergency. And I know I said before that if you had say the delirium is caused by a urinary tract infection, it could lead to sepsis, which could lead to death. If the delirium is caused by lupus, it could lead to irreparable brain damage. And so people need to get some of the medicines that will help prevent that. If it's due to a pneumonia, same kind of thing. What you need to do is you need to get that person into a hospital right away, and really no is not the answer. So I think the first thing you did was you noticed that things were not right. And so you got an EMT involved, and that is absolutely the best thing to do. You make the point about a med list. So actually, I would say that there is a twofold thing that you should do if you have an elder in the house, and even if you don't. If there is a person in the house that is on any type of medication, either supplements or prescription medication, you should have a list of the diagnoses that that person has and their medications and the purpose of that medication. So the kind of list that I love to receive as a physician is a list that says something like this: hydrochlorothiazide, or HCTZ, which is a common blood pressure medicine that is prescribed for folks in our community, particularly because it's a diuretic that works well. It needs to say that, and then it needs to say for blood pressure. But there are medicines that are used for 2 or 3 other reasons, and all of those reasons should be listed. So if your loved one has high blood pressure, you of course list that. If they have diabetes, but they're not taking medicine, you should list that, right? There are people who have mild diabetes or pre-diabetic syndrome, and you should list those things even if they're not taking medicines. If you are taking supplements, it's not a secret from your doctors. You have to share which supplements you're taking. And if you are using substances that are illegal or substances that are frowned on, marijuana or by the medical community, marijuana or methamphetamines or crack or cocaine or any drugs, those are also really important pieces of information for your physician to have. People use those substances. Physicians are grown-ups. We are not going to call the police because your loved one or because you have a cocaine problem. We need to know that those things are going on because those may be contributing to the picture we're seeing. So it's really important. And in 2021, the very best friend that you have for medical care is your cell phone. So you should take pictures if you have a phone that takes pictures, or if your loved one does not, but you do. You should take pictures of those lists and share them with every single person in the family. Everyone should have a copy of that. The other thing that you should not be is afraid to call the emergency room. So in 2020 and 2021, during the pandemic, our loved ones are often put on ambulances, squirreled away, and then we don't see them. That is your time to call into work and let them know that you can't work because you have a new job. And that new job is calling and checking on your loved one. If you have to work, then you need to make those calls while you're at work. So I would really advise every single person who has a loved one in the ER, regardless of age, to call the ER and find out the status constantly. Has that person been moved to a room? Are they going to be discharged? When are they going to be discharged? What is the diagnosis? You want to make sure that when the EMTs come, you identify yourself as the person who will be calling. Sometimes they're kind enough to pass on that information. Now, in the era of HIPAA, of the Health Information Privacy Act, you need your loved one to be able to say that they are willing to allow you that information. However, nationally, if your loved one if you are a human being that is over 65 or who has multiple chronic medical conditions, you should probably look into getting a medical power of attorney that you can trigger at any moment. So the medical power of attorney does not mean that that loved one gets to be in your business all the time. What that means is that when you need them to be, they can be. So if you have 1 or 2 loved ones who are willing to do that, it costs money, it requires an attorney, and it requires paperwork. But you can trigger that. And then when you are ill, you say to that loved one, if I'm in the emergency room, I want you to do this or that. And what they can do is they can actually send by email that power of attorney to the hospital and get folks to talk to them about your health care. So these things can become very important. There are things that we don't think about in our everyday when we live. Are you ready? I'm going to use this term. In our worlds of delusional optimism. In the world of delusional optimism, we are all perfect and we will never be ill, we will never die. But in reality, we are all sitting here knowing that in 500 years, none of us will be here. So to manage the world that we live in today, planning is the very best thing you can do. And to plan means having these things in place before something bad happens.
I'm glad you mentioned that because it gives me a kind of follow-up interview. So I'm just going to make a note of it here. But Hatem, we need to do a follow-up with Makita and have her speak on this medical power of attorney piece, because I meant to do that with her before, but never got to it. But anyway, now that that's on record.
Add wills to it. Add wills to it. And I won't go further, but the movement of dollars out of our community is sometimes because we don't have the appropriate legal paperwork in place. So I would add that piece.
Ashe. Give thanks.
So is there something more you want me to address?
Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit, but when I had last spoken to you, or maybe it was a couple times ago, we had started talking about this vitamin D piece. Give the family your findings on how depleted we are in vitamin D.
I am so glad you asked that question. And that could be a whole nother topic. So as you shout out to whomever's out there about topics, I think a robust conversation on vitamin D in the African American community is an important one to have. So let me start by saying, not all physicians agree with what I'm going to share with you, but I am going to share it nevertheless because I think it is extraordinarily important for people with melanated appearing skin to know. Vitamin D is a nutrient that behaves like a hormone. Vitamin D is a nutrient that behaves like a hormone. Vitamin D is a nutrient that you can get in some foods, but it is very hard to get the amount of vitamin D that you need in your food supply. It just is not present in most foods. It is present in some foods because we put it there. So for example, when you go to the grocery store and you buy a carton of milk, you will often see the words vitamin D enriched. And the reason that milk is enriched with vitamin D in this culture is that vitamin D is required for you to be able to pull calcium into your body from milk. So milk being one of our biggest sources of calcium is usually vitamin D enriched here in the United States. I don't know about other countries. So that is one piece of information, but here is the most powerful piece of information ever. Vitamin D is best obtained naturally. How do you get vitamin D naturally if you don't eat it? You get it by sitting in the sun. The sun communicates with human skin for the production of vitamin D. It's an interesting process. Vitamin D is part of a long line of molecules that are super important in the health and the well-being of a human being. For example, vitamin D with a few changes in its structure can become serotonin, which is an important compound for brain health and brain functioning. It can become dopamine, which is an important compound for brain health and brain functioning, muscle health and muscle functioning. It can become melatonin, which is an important compound that your body produces from vitamin D to help give your brain specific signals about when to go to bed and when to sleep. Melanin is in the chain of vitamin D. There is a lot of science to vitamin D, and I invite every single human to get online, Google vitamin D and serotonin, Google vitamin D and dopamine, Google vitamin D in the sun. And what you will learn is that this very vital nutrient is really important in the optimal functioning of human beings. Long ago, like 20 years ago, in Australia, people were concerned about why some Native Australians were having an increased risk of schizophrenia, and they were trying to understand better how that was happening. And so one of the things that they learned while they were trying to figure out why are these folks struggling more with schizophrenia? Schizophrenia is the same in every population of human beings. So it was just odd that it was a little increased in this population. And what they did find was that people who were Aboriginal in Australia had a decrease in their vitamin D stores in their blood. So when they would look in their bloodstream, their vitamin D levels were not optimal. They were suboptimal. They were low on vitamin D, and some of them had almost appreciably no vitamin D. Coincident with that, it was also happening in the UK, in Great Britain. They were looking at the women who at Jamaican folks and learned that women from Jamaica who were living in the UK and women from the Caribbean islands, I shouldn't pick on Jamaica, that were the most numerous, had low vitamin D levels. And so they decided to try to supplement those vitamin D levels. So that started happening in both of those countries. Folks in Boston read about that, started looking at African-American women, and voila, what we learned is that the vitamin D levels in human beings who had colored skin was much lower than the vitamin D levels in human beings who did not at certain latitudes. And the reason for that is that if you are a Black human being or a colored human being, you have a larger melanin molecule, which I think we all know about, in your skin, and it prevents ultraviolet radiation from penetrating the skin at dangerous levels. Hence, people of color not getting many of the dangerous skin cancers that are triggered by the sun rays. So our skin is marvelous at protecting us from skin cancer, but it also prevents the production of vitamin D at certain latitudes, not so close to the equator. Vitamin D is still quite plentiful in folks with dark skin close to the equator, but as you move away from the equator, it becomes more of a problem. So unfortunately, living in the United States, it is best to supplement that vitamin D orally if you cannot get it by the sun. And what I, as a psychiatrist, found was that many of my patients who were struggling with symptoms of depression often got better with vitamin D supplementation. So vitamin D supplementation has been a part of my practice for a really long time. And the measurement of vitamin D levels. Some work has been done on vitamin D supplementation at Howard University. Work has been done in various places. And the concern and the reason that work has been done is that back in the old days, before all of this discussion of vitamin D, the optimal amount of vitamin D supplementation and that they thought you should take in a day was about 400 international units. But African Americans do not tend to have their vitamin D levels convert to being in the normal range or even low normal range. Or even closer to normal range at 400 or 800 or 1,000 international units. And so oftentimes supplementation is much higher. And consequently, the vitamin D industry has discovered this, and they market vitamin D supplements at 1,000 and 2,000 and 5,000 and 10,000 international units. We do know that people with appropriate vitamin D levels tend to do better with COVID-19 than people with not appropriate vitamin D levels. I think that is quite well documented. What we don't have a clear picture of is whether or not it is the vitamin D that is helping prevent the COVID-19. But we do know that if you have a normal vitamin D level, that you are less likely to become quite ill with that illness. So one of the things I have encouraged every single person of color to do, and actually all of my patients, is to get annual vitamin D levels measured and then supplemented if possible. Now, during COVID-19, that has become a challenge because I actually think it's worse to go in and get a blood draw and expose yourself, particularly if you're over 65 or over 70. So I have encouraged people to take vitamin D. That is controversial, I will say that. I will tell you that I have not had one patient who I have supplemented with vitamin D ever have anywhere near a toxic vitamin D level. Au contraire, actually, I have supplemented people with high dose vitamin D and found that I can get them to normal range, African Americans specifically, to normal range, but not above that appreciably. And when we stop the supplementation, they fall right back down into
Give us this scale so that people get a real clear idea of what you mean by depleted. This scale that we're talking about.
Yeah, so you need at least 30 nanograms of vitamin D in your blood. The number they should give you is around 30. And usually when I check vitamin D levels in my African American patients, it ranges anywhere from 5 or lower to 10. So it's quite a push to get people even over that 20, that 20 nanogram range And the reason why it's controversial is because, and I've actually had patients go see their primary care doctor who has just stopped their vitamin D without checking a level. And then we have to have a conversation. We check the vitamin D, and the doctors begrudgingly will agree, or sometimes we will disagree. But I use vitamin D levels as my guide, and I supplement my patients pretty uniformly. So I will tell you that I take vitamin D. My children take vitamin D. And interestingly enough, the other supplement that they are looking at that they believe is reducing the risk of illness, severe illness from COVID-19, is melatonin, which is another chemical in that range, in the vitamin D range. So I think supplementation of vitamin D is something I have encouraged African-American patients to push their primary care doctors to really think about. And if your primary care doctor is unwilling to check a vitamin D level, I think you need a new primary care doctor.
Well, I heard that, and I did. As I don't know if you've spoken to Charlotte since I told her what you said, but she did get vitamin D, and she's been taking hers. And of course, you know, I have to take mine anyway, but I have increased the dosage, and so.
You know, it's, and I don't like to prescribe medicines or supplements to people I've never met or checked levels for. But what I've noticed is that when I love someone in my personal sphere, I will really advocate and push for them to have their vitamin D levels checked and to be on vitamin D. So here is my personal, this is not a paper that I've written. I would be the first to say I have not done any kind of full-blown research on vitamin D or published on vitamin D. But what I have done is paid very close attention to vitamin D levels of my patients. And every year I keep track of the number of African-American patients who have normal vitamin D levels when I check them. And so my record is 5. Now my caseload has decreased now that I'm in more administrative work, and I have none. In 2020, I had 0 folks, actually, of all my patients, white and black, every racial, ethnic group. I had nobody with a normal vitamin D level, but I have a much smaller population now. But when I had a larger population of patients in the many hundreds, I was not seeing any African-American patients, or very, very few, who had a normal vitamin D level. And every time I did, they were extremely young. They were like, 17 or 18, 19 years old, and usually athletes. So they were outside a lot.
And I think in our talk, if I remember correctly, you were saying that you had those who were testing on the cusp of normalcy, and they only were somewhere in the area of maybe 1 to 2%.
It was lower than that. So when I say I had 2 or 3 patients, or my record was 5. When I had 2 or 3 patients a year, that was out of hundreds. Hundreds, yeah.
All right, man.
I would love to hear. So there are quite a few papers on this, and it is quite a bit of controversy. I remain very interested in that, and I would say that I would push to have my vitamin D level check. If you are a person of African descent and you live in a latitude that is not near the equator, you need to push to have your vitamin D level checked, and you probably need to supplement your vitamin D.
Wow. I'm just stymied over the numbers, man. That is crazy. Wow.
We need vitamin D. It's for some reason, and the reason probably is that our beautiful colored skins, which are protective against ultraviolet radiation, do not allow for the penetration of that radiation to make vitamin D at the levels that are needed in this culture. And I would also say that the less time people spend outdoors, the greater the risk of low vitamin D. So even my patients who are not African Americans, but who spend a lot of time indoors, have really low vitamin D levels. The sun is our friend. Raw is your friend.
All right, so let's make Ra a friend.
One last thing I want to say about that is really around the health of elders. Elders need many of the same things that other people need: nutritious food, exercise, and time spent outdoors. That is super important for every human being, regardless of any physical limitation. It's hard to get that time spent outdoors during this time of the pandemic, right? You have to balance the risk of running into other humans versus the risk of getting outdoors. But if you and your elder can take a trip to a park or a not very well traveled place, and you can get that human being outside walking, if they're able to ambulate or outside in doing any physical activity, you're doing them a great service. So again, exercise is really important in elders.
And I will stress this with our family. I know coming up soon, Hatem and the rest of us in Jinyame will be starting a 21-day challenge. You can start your 21-day challenge at any point, but these are some of the things we can incorporate into our lives to begin with 21 days and hopefully making it a part of our life.
What is that 21-day challenge?
So I'll tell you this story. So a group of elder men and I were meeting out here at the house, and and one day, Hatem had started his 21-day challenge, and I usually join him in it. Now Hatem will go on a fast, and he can come on and tell you that fast, but because he ends up being made fun of and stuff. But on the other hand, the elders and I were sitting around the table, and I said, "Look, elders, our women are aging fairly well," and I said, when you look at us, we need to do better, right? And I said, so we in Jinyame are starting a 21-day challenge, which is to incorporate something healthy in your life for 21 days, whether it's, not drinking any soda, whether it's drinking more water. For me, it was walking a mile a day, right? And so, so I put this challenge to them, and many of us had taken it up, but that's the beginning to changing, I'm trying to think of the word Charlotte uses when she talks about physical education, to basically to change the lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So make the change a part of your lifestyle. That's what I'm trying to say.
So important, so important. So I'm smiling. That I'm just telling you that there's a smile in my voice, probably that you hear it, because I am shocked that you and I are sitting here talking about being elders when our friendship began when we were 17. And I remember sitting with the elders and thinking about them as such. And now here we are. You've got a little dab of gray there on the bottom of your chin, and I have some on the top of my head. And we are thinking about this. We here in Denver are doing the same thing. So I will tell you that about 5 years ago, I decided to put my money where my mouth is when my patients challenged me. And I was sharing with them, you need to think about this and you've got to do that. And they were like, well, Dr. Mills, how much do you do? How much, how many carbs do you eat? And how often do you exercise? And so I have incorporated a relatively healthy lifestyle. I almost drink no beverages that are not water. And when the American Diabetic Association came out and said, hey, people should not be drinking more than 4 to 6 ounces of a sugary beverage a week, my jaw dropped.
Wow.
And I made it a personal goal to get to that number, because diabetes runs in my family, both juvenile and type 2 diabetes, and I am there. I drink lots and lots and lots of water all the time, and some non-sugary tea, right? Ginger tea. So I now am officially, I've got an elder diet, and I'm super proud of it. And I walk 5 miles a day, whether there are 2 feet of snow or it's a sunny day at 100 degrees. I walk 5 miles a day, sometimes more. So but again, it was years. It took me years to get to that point. A dementia in my family and diabetes in my family, and the desire to be able to live well as long as I could has driven me to doing that. And I will say to you, Uncle Kwame, Brother Kwame, that many years ago in Columbus, I was on a radio show with Brother Howard X called How to Eat to Live. And on that radio show, it was a guide between myself and a brother from the Nation of Islam from Columbus, Ohio. And he was doggedly determined to get people to think about how they treated their bodies. And it was from his spiritual perspective. And I was determined to get people to think about how they treated their bodies from a medical perspective. But Brother Howard X shaped who I became, and the importance of treating your body in the way that you would want your body to be presented to the world. And I am oh so grateful for that opportunity. So this conversation reminds me of that radio show we had on 106.3 some 20 plus 30 years ago.
Man. Well, we're trying to age as a fine wine, and I don't even drink wine and never have, but Brother Hot Tim tries to tell me the difference between the different sorts, but I guess I'll just take his word on it and say we'll age like a fine wine. Speaking of part of this lifestyle and transformation, is my brother around, Tiandra?
He is a maybe. So I'm in my office with the door shut. He was here when I talked last. He is also doing miles of walking, so he may actually be on a walk. Do you want me to reach out to him?
No, I mean, I just wanted, to share, how he's incorporated this lifestyle, and the changes that he's seen, and and feeling and all that, because.
Let me tell you, brother, that you ought to include him in the brotherhood conversation. That has been a journey for him, and he has really, really made some changes. So I can't, my husband would not be happy if I shared, but I'm incredibly proud of the lifestyle changes he has made.
Well, I am too. And, just for the family, I call Brother Noel, who you all knew as Noel. I refer to him as Brother Tiandra, affectionately known to me as. And so just so we're all on the same page, another, as she's told you, another Columbus resident at one point.
Native. He's native.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And so, when you see my beloved niece, Ty, tell her I'm going to want to have a talk with her at some point as well.
I will do that. Absolutely. I will see her today.
All right. And of course, Raketi is on schedule too. So just have him, just let him know Uncle Kwame is going to be calling on him.
I will definitely do that. She's, she is those are the two that are trying to put medicine in their lives. They both want to be physicians. So Ty is a phlebotomist right now and applying, and Raketi is in the pre-med track at Del State, which is a lesser known HBCU, but a really wonderful place. Brother Akwasi is her, actually, she's got a class by him. He's her professor right now, which is hilarious, right? So,
what's so interesting about that is in my meta nature class, a brother had done a little piece on looking into Asar and where that, or how that has come, into the different, so for example, he traced it in West Africa, Central Africa, South Africa, and how it presented itself in these different areas. And the name Osei came up. And so, and of course, I thought of my brother, Kwesi, and how he kicked my behind in racquetball.
I'm just going to put this out there for your audience. One of the single greatest reads is Obotashaka's
Facing Mount Kenya.
Well, no, Obotashaka's
okay.
The Cultural Continuity of Black Africa. And I'm trying to think of it's his I consider it his Asar Aset book. I'm actually Googling the title. I can picture it, but the brain is not what it once was.
Tell me about it. Shoot, I'm confusing him with Jomo Kenyatta.
It is Return to the African Mother Principle and of Male and Female Equality. And it is a layout of the cultural continuity of Black Africa, looking at Asar Aset through the diaspora of Africa, right? When I say diaspora, I mean the world diaspora, but the African diaspora, looking at all of those male and female aspects of God in many different cultures. So I just thought I would share that. Still a very good book. I'm looking to get it all over the place.
In actuality, we're kind of all in a same kind of network. And so, we can gain access to his book. That's no problem. It would take Hatem, and if you're listening, Hatem, you can come on, man, and share some of Philippe Shock Matthews' material to show how we're in this network where we basically Philippe Shock Matthews is a brother, I'm not sure, maybe 5 to 10 years older than us, somewhere in that area. And he basically created a Kemetic institute or university. And so he's taken on a lot of elders who don't get their necessary props from all the material that they've written and accumulated over the years. And Hatem refers to it as the Pan-African retirement plan, where brothers and sisters just don't have anything to show for all the work they've put in. And so this brother has basically got all these elders together, got them to digitalize the material, and then to, through whomever they are affiliated with, they can share the material. When I say share, I'm talking about, so let's say Hatem puts out a book and I say, okay, I'm affiliated with Hatem, so I pass that book to you. You buy the book. Hatem gets 50%. I get the other 50%. You share the book. You join the affiliation. You get 50% of it, and then Hatem would get 50% of it. So you keep getting this spread of knowledge, spread of culture, and the spread of some necessary information within the family, so that a lot of these elders don't have to go out on the quote unquote Pan-African retirement plan.
Well, I think about Brother Ankh Ra, who I pour libations for frequently, of Let the Ancestors Speak, and his work, and the work that I know he was working on before he passed, that we have not ever seen. So this is such an important effort. Let me know if there's anything I can do.
All right, but I'll talk to you off stage about the Ankh Ra piece that.
Yeah, talk to Tunda. Tunda is the one.
No, I talked to him, but I came across other information.
Okay, great. Good. I hope it's good news.
Kinda. But with that, my beloved sister, I truly thank you for your time, your information, your generosity. You know I love you. Please give my brother a big hug for me. Give my Denver Oberlin family my love. And, tell Aunt Liv I'm thinking about her. And of course, my beloved nieces and nephews.
Absolutely. Ditto, and my whole Columbus community. What a true pleasure. And thank you, Kwame. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I love
pleasure.
you all. I love you, brother. And I love Brother Hatem. I love you all. I love the Columbus community. You all shaped and formed me, and I am forever grateful.
And you have forever shaped us. All right, sis. One love.
Much love.
Peace. You there, Hatem?